there is nothing real. Is this real or not?
No. Yes, it is.
It is worth $8,000. It must be real anyway.
Right.
I saw a baker who had 8 fingers on each hand.
Hello and welcome to Arts 24's weekly film show. And today we're looking at the French films of the moment with our critic Manon Kerjean. Hello, welcome. Thanks for being here. Now we begin with one of France's biggest productions of the year, De Gaulle, Liberté. This is the second chapter of Antonin Baudry's historical epic, and it follows Charles de Gaulle after the fall of France in 1940. Manon, what did you make of it?
Well, what struck me first is really the scale of the project. French cinema has invested heavily in historical epics over the past few years, like with the Count of Monte Cristo, for example. But this may be one of the most expensive French films ever made, with a reported budget of around 74 million euros. It also brings together an impressive international cast, including Simon Russell Beale as Churchill and Campbell Scott as Roosevelt. So the ambition is clearly to create a blockbuster that can appeal well beyond France. But so far, the first chapter has struggled to meet ticket sales expectations. So let's hope the second one lives up to its promise. Here is a glimpse.
Arriving on the scene is the General Giraud, who will lead the French forces into battle.
L'armée du général Giraud reprend la main.
Vous ne comprenez rien à la politique. Giraud est une marionnette des Américains.
Vous ne pouvez pas obstacler la guerre, général de Gaulle.
Il n'y aura jamais aucun accord entre lui et moi.
I cannot deal with this crazy man.
I cannot deal with this madman.
Les résistants doivent s'unir. Essayez de me laisser le temps d'agir. J'ai besoin de temps.
No République française, just a flag.
Pour lui, la France n'existe plus.
Well, it certainly looks impressive. But Manon, despite the scale of the film, it's not a conventional war film, is it?
No, and that's what I found most interesting. The film isn't just about the battles themselves, even if there are some really well executed scenes, but it's more about persuasion than warfare. Most of the tension actually comes from his conversations with Churchill, Roosevelt, and the French resistance. So it's almost more of a political thriller than a historical epic, strictly speaking.
And the actor Simon Abkarian had the difficult task of portraying one of France's most iconic figures.
Yes, he brings so much emotional depth to the role, especially for a character who's trying to hide his emotions. Charles de Gaulle has become a monument in France, so the challenge was really to bring back his humanity. And Simon Kerjean doesn't really play him as a hero. We see his doubts, his frustrations, his isolation. He is a French-Armenian actor who kind of has a Benicio del Toro vibe, and he's mostly known internationally for his roles in Casino Royale and Persepolis. And there is a fair part of comedy as well. He portrays him almost like a caricature. And as a spectator, this is much more relatable than the larger-than-life figure that we're used to seeing.
Okay, well, it sounds like a very important history lesson for some of us to watch these films. Well, next to another big release this summer, Minions and Monsters. It may come as a surprise to some viewers, but these little yellow characters are actually one of France's biggest cultural exports, even if the film is American. The third Minions film opens in cinemas today. So let's take a look.
Oh. You see those large, heavily armed men? They suspect you have killed their leader.
And they want you dead.
Quick?
Okay, action!
Buddy?
Relax, we're just actors.
That was perfect!
So, Manon, why have the Minions become such a phenomenon?
Well, I think part of what makes the Minions so fascinating is that they've become global pop culture icons while remaining a genuinely French creation. They were imagined by French director Pierre Coffin, and they first appeared in Despicable Me back in 2010, and since then the franchise has earned more than $5 billion worldwide. They were even featured during the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympic Games, which really shows that they've become ambassadors of French creativity. And as some of you might know, they hardly speak at all, which proves that comedy can travel across cultures without relying on dialogue necessarily.
And this third film, it takes the Minions somewhere quite unexpected, doesn't it?
Yes, this time the story takes us back to Hollywood in the 1920s at the dawn of cinema. And it's actually a very clever setting because the silent era perfectly matches the Mignon style of humor. And it's also a very personal project for Pierre Coffin because he said his passion for cinema began with classic movie monsters like Frankenstein or Dracula. So the film is filled with references not only to silent cinema but also to horror and science fiction classics.
And the film also has a special connection with one of the biggest events in animation, doesn't it?
Yes, Minions and Monsters has been chosen to open this year's Annecy International Animation Film Festival, which started this week. Annecy has always been where all of the animation industry comes together and also the place to discover some of the year's biggest animated films. But beyond the screenings, the big conversations which will be held there are really about where animation is heading next. And one of those conversations is obviously about artificial intelligence, which is becoming impossible to ignore.
But the festival, it's not just for industry insiders, is it? There's lots for audiences too.
Definitely. The festival will celebrate the 70th anniversary of Japan's legendary Toei animation studio, home to classics like Dragon Ball and One Piece, while Disney, Pixar, and many other major studios will unveil exclusive first looks at their upcoming projects. But perhaps the biggest milestone is the opening of the International Animation Film Center in Annecy, a permanent space with exhibitions, screenings, and a museum entirely dedicated to animation. So it's a reminder that Annecy is becoming the world's capital of animation all year round, not only during the festival.
And France is particularly well represented in the competition this year, isn't it?
Yes, French animation is having a remarkable year in Annecy. Out of the 11 films competing for the Crystal, 6 are French productions or co-productions. Among the standout is Carmen the Rebellious Bird by Sébastien Lodenbach, who already won acclaim in Annecy for The Girl Without Hands. There's also Iron Boy by Louis Clichy, who's best known internationally for Asterix and the Secret of a Magic Potion, as well as In Waves, which we talked about in our last show in Cannes. And finally, We Are Aliens, a French-Japanese co-production. Let's have a look at their clip for this year's edition of the festival.
There we go, a taster of the Annecy Film Festival taking place right now. Well, we're going to stay with animation, and the final film we're going to talk about today is Vertigo. It's the latest project from Quentin Dupieux, and it was selected as the closing film of the director's fortnight at this year's Cannes Film Festival. Manon, what's your take on this one?
Well, it's not my favorite Quentin Dupieux, but at least his films are always relatively short, so it was still an enjoyable watch. Dupieux is best known for his surreal live-action comedies, such as Rubber or Deerskin, and here he's taking an unexpected step into animation for the very first time. But he isn't trying to make an animated film in the traditional sense. He's actually using animation to question reality itself, which is the starting point of the film, and the visuals deliberately resemble a video game from the early 2000s. So it looks a bit rough and artificial, but this actually perfectly fits the story about a world that may not be real.
It's certainly not a polished animation that audiences might expect, is it?
Not at all. In fact, he does the complete opposite. He used simple motion capture recorded on an iPhone, and he even wanted the technical imperfections to remain visible. So it really looks handmade, and that's quite refreshing at a time when animation is often pushing pushing technology further and further. But despite being animated, the film keeps the very minimalist style Dupieux is known for, with long conversations, dry humor, and characters reacting to completely absurd situations as if everything was completely normal.
Okay, well, our producer, Georgina, did watch a clip of the film and she certainly was not a fan and said it wasn't one for her. So it's not for everybody, but worth a look for some of you. We're going to leave you then with a final look at Vertigo. Thank you, Manon, for guiding us through this week's French releases, and we'll see you next time.
Is this real or not? No.
Yes, it is.
It is worth $8,000. It must be real anyway.
Right?
I saw a baker who had 8 fingers on each hand. We are in a fabricated world and there are bugs hanging around. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. This thing is giving me the creeps.
Oh my. Oh shit. Oh my. There it is. I'm losing my mind.
You sure?
Well, you see clearly. Ah, it's a girl too.